What if I told you one of the biggest fashion brands in the world started with the Scranton kid, $1,500, and a pile of army shirts with sleeves that were too short? You've probably walked past a Banana Republic 100 times. Maybe you've bought a sweater there. But the story of how it began with a kid from Central High School who just wanted to be free, that's a story Scranton never got to tell. Until now. Mel Ziegler graduated from Scranton's Central High School in 1963. And like a lot of kids from this city, he got his start in the only industry that was really booming: print. He landed a job as a copy boy at the Scrantonian-Tribune, running copy, breathing in ink, learning how to tell a story before he even knew that's what he was doing. From there, he went to Penn State, where he won William Randolph Hearst Foundation Awards for journalism. Then on to Columbia Journalism School. Then to the Miami Herald. And then the San Francisco Chronicle. That's a pretty standard journalism career path. But here's where Mel's story gets interesting. At the Chronicle, Mel met Patricia. She was an editorial illustrator, a painter who talked her way into a job by bringing in her etchings. She also did courtroom sketches. Patty Hearst, the zebra murders, the assassination attempt on President Gerald Ford. This was 1970s San Francisco, and the courtroom was front page news every week. They met at the paper's Christmas party in 1974. Their eyes met across a crowded room. That's the actual story. At some point, Mel told Patricia he wanted to be on the other side of this notebook. They fell in love. They got married. And then one day, they both came home from the Chronicle with news. Neither of them had told the other what they were planning. They'd both quit on the same day, without knowing it. Their colleagues thought they were insane. "You'll be back," they said. They wouldn't be back. They had $1,500 in combined savings and an American Express card. That was it. No business plan, no retail experience, no fashion industry contacts. Then Mel got sent to Australia on a magazine assignment. He walked into what they call a disposal store, their version of an army surplus shop, and found an old British Army Burma jacket. You know, the kind that looks like a safari jacket. He bought one, and he wore it home. When he landed, Patricia picked him up at the airport. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at his jacket. She took it home, changed the buttons, added leather trim, and everywhere Mel went, people asked the same question: "Where'd you get that jacket?" Light bulb moment. They'd sell military surplus, but not the way surplus stores sold it. They'd find pieces with character, with history, with a pedigree, and Mel would write stories about every single one. They found a surplus warehouse across the bay in Oakland. Inside, 500 Spanish paratrooper shirts from the Franco era. They bought every single one for $1.25 apiece. They thought they had found heaven. They brought them home, started washing them, had a dinner party that night, and a friend tried one on. The sleeves were too short. That's why they were surplus. So Patricia rolled them up, and Mel, the journalist, the storyteller, sat down and wrote a catalog entry about how Generalissimo Franco had a maniacal eye for long-armed Spaniards and made sure they were never properly suited. It was completely made up. It was obviously made up, and it was brilliant. Here's the proof it worked. The first week, they took the shirts to a flea market. Sign said, "Spanish paratrooper shirts, $6.99. Long day, and they sold 5. The next week, they went back. Same shirts, new sign. Short-arm paratrooper shirts, $12.99. They wore the shirts themselves, collars up, belts on, gave people the story, sold almost all of them. They weren't selling shirts, they were selling stories. Quick pause. If you're new here, All Roads Lead to Scranton is where we dig up the untold stories of Scranton and the people who changed the world. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a single one. They opened their first store in Mill Valley, California, 400 square feet on a side street nobody walked down. So they made the store the attraction. Zebra striped the front, turned the ceiling support poles into palm trees, rolled out AstroTurf because it was cheaper than rugs, hung camouflage tent fabric for a dressing room, and stuck papier-mâché parrots in the trees. Every check they cashed was stamped, "Contributions to struggling young countries are not tax-deductible." Mel's title was Minister of Propaganda. The press kit said, "Propaganda, handle with respect." The catalogs were 3 black and white pages, folded and stapled at their kitchen table. 500 copies. Every item had a story. Gas mask bags from Sweden, without the gas masks. An Italian camouflage jacket with buttons for a hood that was, according to Mel, on back order from a factory in Turin that's been on strike since 1949. Then, Raiders of the Lost Ark hit theaters in 1981, and suddenly everyone wanted safari clothes. By 1983, they had over 100 stores and $250 million in annual sales. The Gap bought the company. Mel and Patricia stayed on for 5 years, but the magic drained out of it. The Gap wanted systemized. The Zieglers wanted one of a kind. They walked away in 1988. After 10 years of nonstop work, Mel described it as one long day. They were exhausted. Everyone kept asking, "What's next?" Mel didn't want to think about what was next, so he went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. No reading, no writing, no talking. And critically, no coffee, only herbal tea. By day 2, he had the worst headache of his life, and he thought, if this is what coffee is doing to me, I'm never drinking it again. For the remaining 8 days, he dreamed about tea. Not just drinking it, but building a company around it. He came home and started the Republic of Tea, the company that basically invented the specialty tea category in America. Mel was the Minister of Leaves, and Patricia was the Minister of Enchantment. They sold it in 1994. Mel Ziegler calls himself a professional amateur. His whole philosophy, learned in Scranton newsrooms, sharpened at Columbia, tested in San Francisco, comes down to this: go with what you got. Turn liabilities into assets. Sell the story, not the thing. And never, ever go back with your hat in your hand. Today, Mel paints acrylic on linen. His pieces have titles like Becoming, Wandering, Marveling, and Me as a Verb, because that's who he's always been. Not a noun, not a title, but a verb in motion. A kid from Scranton who never stopped becoming. So the next time you walk past a Banana Republic, remember, it started with a copy boy, a courtroom artist, $1,500, and a pile of shirts with sleeves too short. That's not a fashion story. That's a Scranton story. I'm Miss Scranton, and all roads lead here. Subscribe for more untold stories from the Electric City, and drop a comment telling me what's your favorite Scranton story I should cover next. Until next week, stay fashionable, my friends.